Angel Reese, in particular, her energy shifted. I thought when she got some of those easy baskets to go in the paint that, quite frankly, she had struggled with to open the ball game. That energy is contagious because if you look at Angel Reese,
let's go back to Angel really quickly, though, because she was part of the catalyst that you saw to be able to change things around. And she said to Holly, I just feel like I needed to take a deep breath and maybe stop overthinking some of these.
Oh, I've been there. I've been there. Like, sometimes the basket is too open.
Right.
Yeah, the reason why we watching women's basketball is not just because of one person. It's because of me, too, and I want y'all to realize that. Y'all said it's the player of the year, so I want all the smoke. All the smoke. So
who's the best player in the country?
To the media or me? I feel like I'm the best player in the country.
But this weekend has to be one of the worst weekends ever for Angel Reese, bruh. I mean, she became a meme last game. She became a super duper meme this game. And all I got to tell you is, Caitlin Clark truly gets the last laugh, man. Make sure
She had the whole game sitting right there in her hands. Tied game, clock bleeding out, wide open under the basket, nothing but a rim, and a moment away from being the hero of the night. And then, it slept. Clean miss. No contest. No help defender flying in. No last-second hand changing the trajectory. Just Angel Reese, alone, missing the biggest shot of her season. And in the 10 seconds that followed, something happened that would end up mattering more to the internet than the actual.
I get one final chance, 81-81, to take this game, resulting in this circus act of a play. Ryan Howard disrupted by Sophie Cunningham, pretty much to Angel Reese right under the basket, who blows it. Naz Hillman gets the rebound, again, blows it. So the game goes into overtime. And I gotta say, Angel Reese looked really upset.
Final score, because as Reese stood there processing what she'd just done, Caitlin Clark walked past her, just a few feet away, wearing a smile. And that smile is the reason we're even having this conversation right now. Welcome back, because today we are diving into one of the messiest, most talked about moments women's basketball has produced all season. A missed layup, a smile. And now, according to a wave of rumors sweeping across WNBA social media, an alleged threat of legal action from Angel Reese herself, aimed directly at Caitlin Clark. Is there anything to it? Stick around, because we're about to break down exactly what happened, why it exploded the way it did, and what it actually reveals about the rivalry that just will not quit. Let's set the scene, because context is everything here. This wasn't some random mid-season matchup nobody cared about. This was Clark and
Reese was terrible. Speaking of terrible, Angel Reese never beating the allegations. This was to open the game.
With Reese leaking out, finds her.
Lee Sheet, that was awful. Wow, that was awful. One more good time. It did a... Yeah. Yikes. Holy moly. Holy moly. Caitlin Clark. Let's go. Down the court. Yeah, let me just pass this ball into AB. Oh, that was nice. That was nice from Caitlin Clark. How about Caitlin Clark cooking Angel Reese?
Clark working behind ball.
Boom. She shot it from the...
Reese, two of the most scrutinized athletes in the entire league, going head-to-head with a game hanging in the balance. Reese gets the ball right under the rim, wide open, the kind of look that professional players convert in their sleep, and she misses it. Not a contested, heavily guarded attempt, a clean, uncontested miss with the game on the line. The broadcast does exactly what broadcasts are trained to do in a moment like that. It cuts straight to her face. And what the cameras caught wasn't...
And the only person to blame is Angel Reese for missing the layup to win the game. Angel Reese missed the layup that would have won the game, and she didn't win the game. As a result, cost her team the game because she can't make a layup. And Caitlin Clark seemed to enjoy it. I have no idea what she was actually smiling about.
Just disappointment. It was devastation. Head down, shoulders slumped, the entire body language of somebody who knows exactly what she just cost her team. And then, just a few feet away, the cameras catch something else entirely. Caitlin Clark, walking back toward her own bench, smiling. Now, nobody outside of Caitlin Clark's own head actually knows what that smile meant, in that exact second. Maybe it was relief that the game wasn't over. Maybe it was the look of someone who knew she still had a shot to close things out herself. But intent stopped mattering the moment the internet got its hands on the footage. Because when you strip this entire viral moment down to its rawest form, here's what it actually is. 2 facial expressions, 3 feet apart, caught by a camera. That's it. That's the entire so-called incident. And somehow, that tiny sliver of footage turned into one of the biggest headlines in the sport this week. Within hours, that clip had been remixed, slowed down, zoomed in, captioned 100 different ways, and blasted across every single platform that exists. Fans who'd been riding with Clark since the moment she stepped onto a WNBA court treated the clip like a trophy, replaying it over and over. Meanwhile, fans in Reese's corner treated the exact same 10 seconds like a public insult that demanded a response. And somewhere in the chaos of memes and quote tweets and reaction videos, a much bigger, much stranger story started to take shape. The claim being that Angel Reese wasn't just embarrassed by what happened, she was reportedly furious enough to be exploring legal action. Not against the refs, not against the league office, against Caitlin Clark, personally, for allegedly laughing at her behind her back. Now, before we go any further, let's be very clear about where this claim is actually coming from, because that matters a lot here. These reports are circulating, unverified, loosely sourced, spreading mostly through gossip accounts and screenshots that nobody has actually managed to trace back to anything resembling a real legal filing. The version of the story getting passed around online suggests that Clark somehow orchestrated the moment and that laughing at a missed shot on a globally televised broadcast crosses a line serious enough to carry actual legal consequences. It's a wild claim, and it deserves to be treated with exactly the level of scrutiny wild, unverified claims deserve. So let's actually think through it for a second, because this is where things get interesting. What would genuinely need to be true for a lawsuit like this to have any real legal footing? You'd need to prove intentional harm. You'd need to demonstrate actual, tangible damages. And you'd need to point to some kind of legal duty that was actually violated. A rival smiling after you miss a shot doesn't check any of those boxes. It isn't defamation. It isn't harassment under any recognized legal standard. It isn't a tort that exists anywhere in a courtroom. And it's not just casual internet opinion saying that. Every lawyer who's weighed in publicly on this rumor, and there have been a handful, mostly half-jokingly on social media, has landed on the exact same conclusion. There's no case here. Not a weak case that just needs the right judge. No case at all. And honestly, when you zoom out, this shouldn't even be surprising. Athletes have trash-talked, celebrated over, and laughed at each other for as long as competitive sports have existed. None of that has ever resulted in an actual courtroom filing that went anywhere. It's baked into the DNA of competition. You miss the biggest shot of the game, somebody's going to enjoy it. That's sports. And here's the part that makes this entire rumor almost impossible to take seriously with a straight face. Angel Reese is not exactly new to using facial expressions and body language as a competitive weapon aimed directly at Caitlin Clark. Rewind all the way back to April of 2023, the national championship game, LSU taking down Iowa. And in that moment, Reese turned directly to Clark on the court and threw the John Cena "you can't see me" taunt right in her face, cameras rolling, millions of people watching live. That moment made headlines for weeks. It was celebrated at the time by Reese's own fan base as swagger, as confidence, as a legend being born in real time on the biggest stage in college basketball. Nobody filed a lawsuit then. Nobody even seriously floated the idea that Clark had legal grounds because a rival mocked her mid-game on national television. It was sports. It was competition. And by every definition, it was one of the defining moments of both of their young careers. So why does one 2-second smile suddenly carry so much weight now? That contrast tells you almost everything you actually need to know about what's really going on underneath the surface here. This was never really about laughing. This is about losing, and about how badly that loss looked while it was playing out on the biggest stage either of them plays on. Because here's a number that makes all of this sting a whole lot more than a single missed layup ever could on its own. Before this game, Angel Reese was already 1-6 against Caitlin Clark in WNBA regular season play. 1 win, 6 losses. This wasn't some rare, unlucky night where Reese ran into bad fortune against her biggest rival. This was the 7th time these two had matched up as professionals, and it was the 6th time Clark walked away with the win. The missed layup in overtime didn't create that pattern out of nowhere. It just became the most viral, most widely shared chapter of a story that's already been writing itself for years. And while that head-to-head record keeps tilting in one direction, the two players' overall trajectories are pulling apart just as sharply. Clark is currently averaging 22 points and 8.3 assists a game this season, leading the entire league outright in assists and sitting squarely in the middle of the MVP conversation with real momentum behind her case. Reese, in her first season wearing an Atlanta jersey after an offseason trade, is averaging 15.6 points and 12.1 rebounds. Respectable numbers, real, legitimate production on a nightly basis, but nowhere close to the same level of national spotlight or awards buzz that follows Clark everywhere she goes. And that gap in attention is exactly what makes the timing of this whole situation feel so loaded and so uncomfortable for everyone involved. Because in the weeks leading up to this specific game, there was a real growing chorus of people saying Angel Reese was in the middle of one of the best stretches of her entire career. Analysts were pointing to her rebounding numbers, her improved playmaking out of the post, the fact that she was putting up near triple-doubles on a semi-regular basis for the first time as a professional. People were genuinely starting to give her credit for it, not manufactured hype for the sake of engagement, but actual basketball respect built on real production happening on the floor night after night. The Atlanta Dream were positioning themselves as a legitimate playoff team heading into the stretch run. And then this one missed layup in this one specific game against this one specific rival undercut the entire storyline that had just started building real momentum around her. Everybody watching live and everybody watching the replay for days afterward got to see, in real time, on the exact stage where it mattered most, that the doubts about her finishing at the rim in high-pressure moments hadn't actually gone anywhere. And that is a much harder thing to sit with quietly than a smile caught from 30 feet away by a broadcast camera. So strip away the lawsuit talk entirely. Set aside the legal language and the screenshots nobody can actually verify, and what you're left with is a much simpler, much more human story underneath all of it. Nobody realistically believes Angel Reese has hired a legal team over a 2-second smile. What people genuinely seem to believe, and what the tape on the court actually supports, is that Reese is dealing with the very public, very repeated experience of coming up short against the one player whose success has come to define so much of the national conversation around her own career. Every time this specific matchup happens, it was never really about a facial expression caught on camera for 2 seconds. It was about what that facial expression represented in that exact moment. Clark getting to feel good, Clark getting another shot at closing out the win herself in overtime, while Reese was left standing under the rim with the one shot she absolutely had to make, slipping right through her fingers in front of everyone. And the reaction to this alleged lawsuit talk has made that underlying dynamic even more obvious than it already was. Sports commentators, podcast hosts, and fans across pretty much every platform have spent the last several days having a genuine field day with the whole idea, most of them landing on some version of the exact same joke. If missing a game winner and getting laughed at were legally actionable, half the history of professional sports would be tied up in court proceedings right now. Buzzer beaters get celebrated loudly. Misses get mocked, sometimes cruelly, sometimes affectionately. That has always been the unspoken deal in every sport, at every level of competition. And honestly, it's part of what makes competition worth tuning in for in the first place. The idea that one specific instance of it should suddenly come with legal consequences hasn't been treated as a serious grievance by almost anyone outside of the small handful of rumor accounts actively pushing the story for engagement. It's been treated for exactly what it looks like on its face. Somebody struggling to process a very public loss, and a corner of the internet running wild with a story that gives that struggle a much bigger stage than it probably ever deserved.
But here's the part that actually matters going forward, far more than anything involving lawyers, screenshots, or unverified rumors. Right now, the standings have the Fever sitting 4th at 23-12 and the Dream sitting 5th at 21-13. If the season ends anywhere close to where it stands today, these two teams meet each other in the first round of the playoffs, the first ever postseason matchup between Clark and Reese as professionals with real elimination stakes attached, real pressure, with no next game cushion and no convenient overtime buzzer left to soften the blow of a single bad possession. That is the actual rematch that should be dominating this entire conversation, not a rumored lawsuit that legal analysts have already dismissed publicly as having zero real foundation. Because if that playoff game happens the way the standings currently suggest it will, the noise around one smile caught on the broadcast camera in the middle of August is going to look microscopic compared to what's coming down the road. In the regular season, you get to walk it off. You get a few days, a few headlines, a meme cycle that eventually dies down before the next matchup rolls around. But in the playoffs, there's no walking it off quietly before the next game arrives on the schedule. There's only winning or watching someone else get the very last laugh on the single biggest stage either of them has ever played on in their entire careers. So while the internet keeps arguing over lawsuits that almost certainly don't exist, keep your eyes on the standings, because the real story here was never about a smile. It was always about who's going to be laughing when it actually counts. Let me know down in the comments who you think comes out on top if these two meet in the postseason, and if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you're subscribed, because this rivalry is nowhere close to being done.